Delete. Yes. All right. Did I? Yeah, I did pay for the thing. Yeah, I fucked up. I gotta do that again. You know what I'll do is I'll just hang out and continue to stream. Stop this fucking over. Got it. Test test. Stop this fucking over. Got it. Test test. Bueno. Good. Good. Okay, so the whole intent. You know what? I'll just make this a whole like 3.2. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna go and talk about the Arch Nemesis mods, but I think I'll approach it a different way now that I have a second shot at that. Pop out. Switch. Out. Ah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Be right back. Mm. That is called content. Hell yeah, brother. Okay, no. No, Trish. Okay. Starting the episode again. We're focused. Laser focused. Laser goddamn focused. Fucking pinpoint shit. Update titles. Oh, podcast and talk show. There's. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. 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 So. I am going to set up and we are going. We are at game. We are gone. We are doing it live. In 3, 2, 1, and hello and welcome to episode 48 of the Near Death Experience podcast. I'm Deathclock1637 as usual, and we got a special one for you this week. Basically, what's happening in the Path of Exile world is the 3.19 league is ending. GGG has made it clear that because of the release schedule, they want to push things off a bit. And they have started releasing their balance manifestos, of which there are a lot. So what I'm going to take the time to do is go over one in particular that has, at least for me, sparked a lot of interest because it's arch nemesis. And I thought the system was trash. So what we're going to do is give a little bit of background on when arch nemesis was around, when it came out, what it turned into, and where we're at now, just to kind of frame things a little better. I'm just trying to find the PoEDB page that had all of them. Okay. Nope, that's not correct. This is the one. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to talk about when it came out, what it was in the context of that first particular league, and then I'll read the manifesto, let you know kind of what is contained in there, and then just show you the PoEDB reference page for Arch Nemesis to kind of drive home the point. You'll see how convoluted things were and how much clearer things are going to be. So, without further ado, basically on the topic of what Arch Nemesis was, essentially what would happen in 3.17 is we got a balance patch as usual, and the sort of small league mechanic that came out, which was called Arch Nemesis. And what you would sort of do is build a bear for your mod encounter on a particular type of mob. So you would go up to a particular mob that was chained up that had this big altar. You'd go up, you'd click on it, and you could find these little trinkets that basically amounted to a monster mod. and you could find a skeleton, for example, or a goat warrior or anything, and then insert your mods up to 4. And then it had specific outcomes that would happen. So there were recipes that they made clear where you could combine 2 things and it would work out to another tier of, item within Arch Nemesis that would do more things, and so on and so forth, where you could build a 4 mod Arch Nemesis monster at some point, fight it. It was neat. But, in the context of that league, it was very contained. It was just, the old mod system existed. This was supposed to be an experiment into how they could simplify all the mods that you would see on a monster. And, to everyone's kind of surprise, Arch Nemesis not only went core, it turned into the de facto mod pool for all monsters in the game. And that really started a lot of tension in the community. Personally, I thought it was unnecessary, and you'll see why in the Balance Manifesto, why that is, and, kind of going through the sentiments of why it was unnecessary and the problems that it had, because this system was rebalanced and rebalanced quite a few times. Again, when you only have it applying to one particular thing, that's a lot different than having it global, because the impacts are a lot different. So now you can't choose what mods go on this thing, and, plan it for yourself. You have to now deal with the dynamic nature of something that is like heavily fire resistant and has a bunch of mods that, although it might say 4 words, it actually means like 15 to 20 plus things. So here we go. I'm going to switch to my computer view. I'm just going to maximize this screen. Video guide. So 3.20 Balanced Manifesto, Monster Mods and Arch Nemesis. In our upcoming 3.20 expansion, Arch Nemesis will be replaced with a system that is more similar to the way monster mods worked in the past. Yes. That's amazing. The issues that players often had with Arch Nemesis were the keyworded mod names were not fully descriptive of what they did. The mods often had multiple effects bundled, which made them harder to understand. Due to the many effects of a single mod, it made encounters way too complicated, which is a much different way of saying the same thing here. Due to how many effects were included in a single mod, it made too many encounters just too complicated. The way Arch Nemesis rewards were set up meant that many players felt like they couldn't just kill a monster. They had to consider if they wanted to bring in a magic find character to maximize rewards. So all of this kind of like encapsulates what was wrong with the system in the first place that never really got fixed. So GDG was extremely stubborn on this. They wanted to keep it in. They said it's the future of mods. And really, it just introduced all these problems and they just compounded. So instead of the original 317 scaling, where you could decide what your mods were and it was a nice little additive tier of reward set, initially it felt like the whole system was stripped bare because of the quantum rarity changes, which is a separate thing. But, it just didn't give you anything for a hard fight. And people were asking, why is this? Again, separating that quantity and rarity thing, it just made everything way too unnecessarily difficult. I believe in difficulty in a game. I respect a game for wanting to have a challenge, but it should be a challenge that, isn't so constantly in your face like Arch Nemesis was. And instead of clarifying monster mods, this made it worse. It just added that twist of, instead of the old system where you could see a bunch of words layered on a mob, now they're 4 words, but it's actually worse because, like I said, those 4 new things transpose into a much bigger list of bullshit than was originally there. So the aim here is now to essentially go back to the drawing board and actually make a system that's very clear. So the goals of the new system are: mods do one specific thing. It's about time. Mods say what they will do rather than having a thematic name you must learn and remember. Huge problem. Well, now that's solved. Encounters are simplified on average while retaining interesting fights. Thank you. Players are no longer required to do annoying actions to maximize rewards. So the annoying action they're talking about is when, you would find your loot goblin type of mob, which turned into basically the meta for the game, and all you would really play it for is, you would try to find your awesome arch nemesis mob and then say, oh, I need a magic find color to come in and pop it so that we can maximize the rewards. And it just threw that whole sort of loop out the window where you were no longer just, playing the game. You were now looking for a specific thing and trying to maximize everything you could get out of that one mob type. And you just, revolved your gameplay around that. So it just took away from everything. Like, it just sucked the fun out of the game in the sense that, like I said, you're no longer playing to have random good drops from any mob. You are looking for one thing. And that's not good. So I'll read the headings, but basically these paragraphs of explanation expand on the goals. But again, mods do one specific thing. Mods say what they do rather than having a theme name, and it makes things easier, and it removes that annoying action. So to kind of track back a little bit, an example is the Magma Barrier Arch Nemesis mod, which did a lot of things. It put a Magma Barrier ring, which you'd think that was the only effect. Nope. It converted some of the monster's fizz damage to fire. That's 2 effects. It added some extra fire damage on top. 3 things. It granted fire resistance to the mob, and it gave some physical damage reduction for good measure. So granted fire resist and gave it physical damage reduction for good measure. And then it also spawned volatile flame bloods to follow you. So that's a big frame of effects for something that was never really intended to do that much. So we'll look at Magma Barrier. So, this is the list of crap, and then here's the reward tier that it would give you post 317. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 modifiers plus the extra things that this says it's doing is 7 things. Like, why does this supposedly simpler system need to take my mob from hasted, which is extra attack, movement, and cast speed, to something like this where hold on, Magma Barrier, increased fire res, gain 25% of fizz as extra fire, fizz converted to fire, and then additional damage reduction. Like, that's just insanity. So again, the aim is to remove all that and just come down to things like applies a random mark. Very clear. And that's all it's going to do. Extra crits. That's what it does. And accurate. That's what it does. No extra bullshit. So again, it was a great concept. I really liked the idea of modernizing the monster mods, but the way it was implemented and the amount of just sheer stubbornness on this mechanic was just completely unnecessary. And honestly, I think that, along with everything else that went on, just, took the fun out of Path of Exile that you would formerly have. Like, you used to go through, and yes, there was too much loot dropping, so that got remedied. a little too much in one direction. Topic for another time. But, instead of this like miscellaneous grab bag of stuff that you then had to, exit your encounter portal back to your hideout and say, oh, wait, what does everything do? Hold on, let me check PoEDB. What are the rewards on that? Scroll, scroll, scroll. You know what I mean? All of that is going to be gone. And this is going to be the biggest thing. So, they wanted to make a more modern modifier system. This should have been it from the beginning, I think. This should have been, that whole move from, okay, well, Arch Nemesis had all this ambiguity. Let's take that ambiguity and make it into something more meaningful, rather than, Deadeye doing 5 separate things. You'll just see those things separately. So a monster could just be accurate and deal extra crits rather than all 3 plus, right? So the result is a system that is very similar to what monster mods used to be like, but with much more up-to-date content and balance. Mods are simpler and say exactly what they will do. A thing that should have been in every scenario. Like, why did it need to be this? Again, that's kind of a moot point since Arch Nemesis is basically gone now. Well, in 3.2, but you get the idea. While you can certainly still rarely encounter scary combinations of mods that really wake you up, it's a lot rarer than it was under the Arch Nemesis system. We feel that the new system is more modern and interesting than the old monster mod / Nemesis system, and is clearer and easier to understand in the heat of combat than Arch Nemesis was. So, yes, and like just ongoing yes. I spent a podcast episode going into basically the alternatives to Arch Nemesis, and it seems like what they've done is gone with the remove it scenario. I talked about things like keeping it in, but putting in more rules, or, diluting what these particular effects did so they didn't stack as high, at least to my knowledge. But, to go to something just easier to see, I think this carries a lot better into PoE 2, and it should make for a much better experience overall going forward. I really did not think there was a need to keep Arch Nemesis, and it's really easy to say that, in its isolated state, Arch Nemesis was fine, but when it's everywhere, it was just annoying and intrusive and, overly complicated, and all the things that people just don't like about how Path of Exile can be sometimes. So I hope that they take a hard-earned lesson from this, which is basically like, control your scope, for fuck's sakes. Like, there was this whole discussion about scope creep, but it seems like this is one of those things that just got out of hand. Sometimes simpler is better, and this is exactly one of those times where you need to kind of snap yourself out of this, layering of difficulty and say, okay, is this too much? Like, am I going to jump into a scenario where I have a prismatic magma barrier mob, which is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever, amount of mods that could potentially be like, all this plus corpse detonator plus flame strider. Like, what the hell is that? It would have what? 80 fire res, 30 increased damage, plus 50 to all elemental res. So it'd be 130 fire res. There's 2 fire damages, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so it'd be 30 plus 30, so it'd be 60. And then there would be all this conversion and, ignite damage. So, it's easy to say that your character would just be dead, trying to fight this thing. And if you came at it with fire damage, you would have to have every single type of penetration, curse, and like the best items to try and combat that. And, mini bosses like this should not exist as random rares. Sure, they should be interesting sometimes, but, when it's constantly like this, and when, the Arch Nemesis mods are stacked onto previous leagues that had their own collection of unique stuff, then, it just turns into a big cluster. Like, I know I've spent a lot of time complaining about this. I really do still love Path of Exile, but they really need to, again, take the hard L. I really appreciate the fact that they could do that and that they were willing to do that. It's a really gutsy thing to basically say that, in essence, we were wrong. And, this mod system was basically like a complete 180 from what we actually wanted. So, it did a lot more harm than good. It, didn't result in anything, I believe, markedly better. And I'm quite frankly happy to see it go. Like, good riddance. I honestly and truly do not believe that this system needed to go core. I think it was just the result of stubbornness. I know I've kind of like repeated myself a bunch of times on that, but it's true. Like, knowing what's best for the game and getting lost in something as, that can be much easier to control, like scope creep. Different worlds. So anyway, there are other balanced manifestos coming out. There is one other one currently that talks about jewels. They are basically making the rollable jewels more powerful and more meaningful. And there's the whole balanced manifesto on that, as well as extra info on unique jewels, ones that are getting removed, ones that are getting adjusted, and a lot of extra info on how you'll be able to supplement that, and basically just telling us that a lot of the good jewels that we have in terms of like primordials or inspired learning are not getting adjusted, but in the grander scheme of things, it'll be much more worth taking them, and you'll get a lot more utility out of just the base rolls. And no, the corrupted modifiers don't seem to be getting changed. So, with that, I'm going to say that is it for this episode. Feel free to find us at the social links on the bottom of the graphic here. Follow the Twitter, see us on YouTube, find us on Twitch. You can also go to our Patreon at patreon.com/NDE_podcast. And there you have two options. You can subscribe to the show for $1, or you can go to the $2.50 tier. And basically with either one, you'll get access to unreleased episodes. And with the $2.50 tier, you'll be able to get a title in our Discord, which you can also probably find below. Once again, feel free to join. Feel free to support the show however you feel you should. You don't have to give any money if you don't want to. And I made the tiers as cheap as they were because obviously everyone has different situations, and you shouldn't have to do something like subscribe on Twitch to give Amazon money and maybe I get half a cut. I just don't believe in it. Anyway, yeah, thanks once again. We'll see you next time. I'm going